Hey guys, tonight we drift back, far back, to the soft, smoky twilight of ancient Rome. You're standing at the edge of the city as dusk begins to fall, the warm air still humming with the last flickers of day. A slow breeze moves through narrow streets, carrying the mixed scent of olive oil, dust, and distant baking bread. Somewhere nearby, a donkey brays half-heartedly, unimpressed by the weight of empire. The glow of 1,000 oil lamps flickers to life, painting gold across the cracked stone walls. You probably wouldn't survive this city, by the way. Between the questionable water, the crowds, and the constant risk of something or someone falling off a balcony, ancient Rome is no gentle place. But tonight, you're just a quiet observer, drifting through it all. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The cobblestones beneath your feet are still warm from the sun. You walk slowly, your sandals scraping gently against uneven stones worn smooth by centuries of feet. It's that magical hour when the day laborers shuffle home, their tunics dusty and loose, and the shopkeepers begin pulling down their wooden shutters with a tired sigh. The air carries the faint tang of wine and frying fish, and above it all, the steady hum of a living city, the greatest in the ancient world. You pass under an archway. Overhead, a fading fresco depicts the god Mercury, smiling faintly as if amused by the endless commerce below. Rome, at this hour, feels almost intimate. Not the marble and power Rome of history books, but the lived-in, sleepy city. The one that smells of damp laundry, wet stone, and human warmth. You hear the clatter of iron-rimmed wheels in the distance. Carts are banned from most of the city during daylight, so at night they thunder through the narrow streets, hauling grain, amphorae, and everything else an empire needs to keep breathing. You press yourself into the shadow of a wall as one rumbles past, the driver muttering curses about potholes that could swallow a small horse. Somewhere above, a woman shakes a rug from her balcony, sending a cloud of dust drifting down in slow motion. You cough lightly, because apparently 2,000 years of progress still haven't improved air quality. The smell of olive oil soap drifts from a nearby doorway, mixed with the faint perfume of crushed myrtle leaves, Rome's version of air freshener. If you listen closely, you can almost pick out the layers of sound. The soft murmurs of people eating behind open shutters, the clang of a blacksmith's final strike, the distant laughter from a tavern. It's all muffled now, as if the city is tucking itself in. The historian Livy once said that Rome was born from chaos and ambition, but what he didn't mention is how cozy it feels after dark. You pass a baker's shop, still warm from the oven. A few latecomers wait patiently for tomorrow's bread, which is baked at night so it can be delivered at dawn. The baker's young apprentice, flour-dusted and half asleep, waves you away politely as he locks up. You keep walking. A cat darts between your feet, vanishing into the shadows with the effortless grace of an animal that owns the city. The air feels thicker here, near the Subura district, a jumble of tall apartment blocks, taverns, and workshops stacked almost on top of each other. This is where most Romans actually lived, not the grand villas you see in movies. You turn into a narrow alley, the kind that never seems to end. Oil lamps flicker from wall niches, each protected by little clay bowls to keep the wind from snuffing them out. Their golden light makes the plastered walls look warm and soft, though the truth is they're cracked and stained by time. A rat scurries past. You try to pretend you didn't see it. Somewhere nearby, a door opens and an old man leans out to toss a bucket of water, or something that used to be water, into the street. You step quickly aside. Historians still argue whether ancient Romans really shouted "Cave Cana," watch out, before dumping their chamber pots, but tonight, you don't take the risk. There's a strange charm to it all. The closeness, the noise, the smells that change with every turn. The empire might have stretched across continents, but the real Rome was this, a maze of lives stacked high and crammed tight, breathing in rhythm beneath the stars. Above you, laundry lines sway between windows like ghostly banners. A mother sings softly to a child, her voice drifting down between the rooftops. You pause, just listening. Somewhere far off, the forum is quiet now, its marble columns bathed in silver moonlight, the echoes of orators long since faded. You stop at a small fountain tucked between buildings. The water burbles gently from the mouth of a carved lion's head. You crouch down and let the coolness run through your fingers. Public fountains like this were the veins of Rome, fed by aqueducts that carried pure water for miles. It's one of the marvels of Roman engineering, really. People filled their jars here every morning and night, gossiping as they waited. And yes, even back then, someone was probably complaining about rent. You dip your hands in again, splashing your face. The air feels cooler now, calmer. You take a deep breath, noticing the faint sweetness of nearby fig trees. Somewhere behind you, a door creaks open and a burst of laughter spills out. A group of men finishing their evening meal, maybe arguing about chariot races or taxes. You smile faintly. Some things never change. You start walking again, following the curve of the alley as it widens into a small courtyard. A mosaic glints beneath your feet, its tiles catching the lamplight, blue, white, and gold. It's old, probably centuries, even in your current timeline. Rome has layers like that. New homes built on old foundations, streets laid over older ones still buried beneath. The whole city feels like it's breathing through its own past. A gentle breeze passes through, carrying the scent of rosemary from a nearby window box. It brushes against your face, cool and clean. You glance upward. Between the rooftops, the stars are faint but steady. Somewhere beyond them, the empire stretches endlessly. But here, in this quiet street, all of Rome feels small enough to hold in your hands. You reach the end of the courtyard, where a narrow stairway climbs into the darkness. A flickering light shows the way, a small clay lamp left burning beside a door. You can hear faint voices above, the creak of someone moving about. You'll climb those stairs soon enough to see how the Romans truly lived. But for now, you linger, letting your senses rest on this moment. The warmth of the stone under your palms, the whisper of water at your back, the muffled rhythm of a city falling asleep. It's not the grand Rome of Caesar or Augustus tonight. It's the Rome of bakers and barbers, of tired merchants and children chasing shadows. It's the heartbeat beneath the marble. And as the final light fades from the sky, you feel it. A soft, slow stillness settling over everything. Even the noise of the carts seems to drift farther away. The night belongs to you now, and the city hums like a lullaby in the distance. Tomorrow, you'll climb those stairs and find your bed for the night. But for now, you just stand quietly, letting the soft air and the scent of warm stone carry you deeper into the Roman evening. You stand at the bottom of a narrow staircase, the kind that looks like it was built for people much smaller and far more patient than you. The steps rise steeply into the gloom, uneven and worn smooth by centuries of sandals. A faint glow flickers somewhere above, an oil lamp left on a landing maybe, and you take your first step upward into the world of Rome's apartment dwellers. The building you're in is an insula, a Roman apartment block. They were the backbone of city life, housing the millions who kept Rome alive. You might imagine Roman life as grand villas and marble courtyards, but in truth, most Romans lived in cramped rooms stacked high above noisy streets. Some of these insulae climbed 6, even 7 stories, taller than most ancient structures dared. Fire and collapse were constant threats, and yes, historians still argue whether landlords actually cut corners or if the building codes were simply that bad. The wooden railing wobbles slightly as you climb, and you instinctively shift your weight away from it. It wouldn't do to fall through and make history's first recorded lawsuit against a Roman architect. You pass a door on the first landing. It's cracked open, and the warm smell of lentil stew drifts out, thick with garlic and herbs. Someone's laughing inside, a deep rolling sound, followed by the clatter of bowls. You picture a family sitting around a low wooden table, passing bread, talking about the day's gossip, maybe arguing about which gladiator has the best chance in the next arena games. You continue upward. The stairs narrow, turning sharply. Above, the walls are rough plaster, patched and repatched. A faded red mural peeks through in places, a crude imitation of the frescoes you'd find in wealthier homes. Even so, there's something cozy about it. You can hear faint voices, the soft thud of footsteps, the creak of a bed somewhere. Life hums all around you. When you finally reach your door, you're mildly out of breath. Roman stairs seem to go on forever, and the air up here feels warmer, thinner, touched with the scent of smoke from nearby hearths. You push the wooden door open, it sticks for a moment, and step into your room. It's small. A single window opens toward the street, its shutters half closed to block out dust and noise. The walls are bare, except for a little alcove where two small clay figures watch over you. The household gods, the lares. Every Roman home had them, whether a palace or a one-room rental. You nod to them politely. They've seen worse tenants. Your living space is simple. A low bed against one wall, a small chest at the foot of it, and a rough wooden stool beside a clay lamp. There's no separate kitchen. Fires in upper floors were too risky, so meals come from street vendors or public cookshops. You'll get used to it, eventually. You drop your bag, well, your imaginary Roman satchel, by the stool and look around. The air smells faintly of olive oil, plaster, and the smoke that seeps up from the apartments below. Somewhere beneath you, someone's arguing about rent. You hear a woman's sharp voice, then a man's groan of defeat. Some things, you think, are as eternal as the city itself. You walk to the small window and peer out. From up here, the street looks almost peaceful. A few lanterns sway in the night breeze. The baker's boy is sweeping crumbs from his doorstep, while a couple of stray dogs nose around a pile of vegetable peels. The stars, faint and scattered, blink above the rooftops. Rome sleeps in layers, one floor over another, one class over another. Down in the streets, the working poor press shoulder to shoulder. Above them, wealthier tenants rent more stable rooms, with better air and fewer rats. You, tonight, are somewhere in the middle. Not quite comfortable, but safe enough. You sit on the bed, which creaks like it's sharing a secret. The mattress is stuffed with straw, the Roman equivalent of memory foam if your memory is of sleeping in a hayloft. Wealthier citizens might have wool or feather stuffing, but most people made do with straw, refreshed every few months and sprinkled with herbs to mask the smell. There's a rough woolen blanket folded at the foot of the bed, and as you run your hand across it, you notice tiny knots, hand-spun and coarse. It's comforting in its imperfection. On the chest sits a small bronze mirror, warped slightly with age. You pick it up, catching the flicker of your own reflection in the lamplight. Roman mirrors weren't the bright, flawless glass we know. They offered more of a suggestion of your face, which, depending on your vanity, might actually be an improvement. You place it back down and light the oil lamp beside you. The flame dances to life, spreading soft, golden warmth across the room. You can see the texture of the plaster now, the faint marks of fingers, the uneven surface where someone repaired it years ago. These buildings were patched constantly. Cracks and leaks were simply part of life. During heavy rain, upper floors sometimes flooded, and water dripped through ceilings like a reluctant fountain. Landlords were notorious for ignoring repairs. There's even a story about Emperor Augustus himself fining negligent owners for letting buildings crumble. Of course, the fines were rarely enforced. Paperwork wasn't exactly a Roman strength. You lie back for a moment, hands behind your head, listening. The city murmurs all around you. A baby cries somewhere down the hall, followed by the shushing of a tired mother. A door slams. 2 floors below, someone starts strumming a cithara, the notes uneven but pleasant. The rhythm of life in Rome never truly stops. It just softens after dark. The air is stuffy, and you can feel the day's heat still clinging to the walls. Most Romans didn't have chimneys. Smoke simply found its way out, or didn't. To cool down, people left their shutters open, letting the faint breeze carry away the warmth and the occasional insect or bit of ash. You consider doing the same, but the sound of a donkey braying below convinces you otherwise. There's a faint tapping at your door. You open it to find your neighbor, a wiry man with a missing tooth and a friendly grin. He offers you a small loaf of bread, still warm from the communal oven down the street. Leftover, he says, though it smells divine. You thank him, and he shrugs, muttering something about the gods' rewarding generosity. Then he's gone, his sandals slapping softly against the stairs. You break the loaf in half. The crust is firm, the inside dense but fragrant. It tastes of barley and olive oil, faintly salty. Romans ate bread with everything. It was the foundation of every meal, dipped in wine, used to scoop stew, or simply eaten plain before bed. You chew slowly, feeling the texture, the quiet satisfaction of something simple and honest. From outside, the city sighs. You hear a cart rattle in the distance, the hooves echoing off stone. Someone calls out, a guard maybe, or a late-night merchant. Then silence returns, thick and familiar. You stretch, feeling the rough linen of your tunic against your skin. The Romans were practical about sleepwear. Most people simply slept in what they wore during the day, or in a simple undertunic. The idea of dedicated pajamas hadn't yet been invented. Still, there's something freeing about it. Less ceremony, more surrender. You lie back down. The straw rustles beneath you, prickly but surprisingly soft in places. The lamp flickers lower, and the shadows lengthen across the walls, bending and swaying like slow dancers. You can almost imagine the city breathing beneath you, millions of tiny sounds merging into one steady pulse. In the quiet, your eyes wander to the small clay figures of the lares again. Their expressions are fixed in a faint, eternal smile. Families would leave them offerings of bread or wine before bed, asking for protection through the night. You murmur a few soft words, nothing formal, just gratitude. Maybe they'll keep the rats away. Outside, a dog barks once, twice, then stops. The city holds its breath. You can feel yourself sinking deeper into the atmosphere, the rhythm of the night wrapping around you like a blanket. Rome may have been the heart of an empire, but here, in this small, flickering room, it feels like something else entirely. Fragile, human, and endlessly alive. Tomorrow, you'll wake to the clang of merchants and the smell of fresh bread. But for now, you rest in the quiet warmth of your insula, high above the ancient streets, while the city whispers its lullaby below. You wake before dawn, or at least before the city fully stirs. The room is still dim, the faintest gray light bleeding in through the wooden shutters. The air feels heavy and cool, carrying that dusty, mineral smell that lingers after night. Somewhere below, a vendor is already shouting about fresh figs, his voice echoing up through the alleys. You stretch, the straw mattress sighing beneath you. It's scratchy, uneven, and yet, somehow, comforting. Roman beds, you discover, were less about softness and more about utility. The typical lectus cubicularis, or sleeping bed, was little more than a wooden frame strung with leather straps or cords. The mattress, stuffed with straw or wool, sat on top. Wealthier Romans might have their straw replaced more often, or mixed with fragrant herbs to mask odors and ward off insects. Some even sprinkled dried rose petals inside, because why not make your hay smell like poetry? You run your hand along the coarse linen blanket draped over you. It's thick and slightly rough, woven from sheep's wool, a little itchy but warm. Linen was expensive, silk rarer still. In fact, Roman senators once tried to ban silk imports altogether, complaining that it made men effeminate and drained too much gold from the empire. Historians still argue whether that was moral outrage or just jealousy over not affording the good stuff. You sit up, rubbing sleep from your eyes. The bed creaks in protest, the cords beneath the mattress groaning like an old man's knees. Wealthier citizens, of course, had beds so luxurious they might make modern ones jealous. Frames carved from ivory or bronze, mattresses stuffed with wool, feathers, or even peacock down. Yes, that's right, peacock feathers. Imagine sleeping on the most flamboyant bird in history. Only in Rome could comfort and vanity intertwine so extravagantly. But you're in a modest insula room. The simplicity has its charm. The bed is narrow, built for one, maybe two if you're especially fond of elbows. Most Romans didn't consider sleep a private activity anyway. Large families often shared rooms. Servants sometimes slept on the floor or on rolled blankets in corners. Space was a luxury, not a right. You swing your legs over the edge and feel the rough wooden floor beneath your feet. A faint chill rises through it from the stone below. Somewhere downstairs, you hear the rhythmic sound of a broom sweeping, someone tidying before the morning rush. You yawn, stretch again, and glance at the little clay lamp beside you. The oil's nearly gone, a faint wisp of smoke curling from its spout. You pinch it out, letting the gray dawn take over. The Romans were surprisingly practical about bedtime. There were no alarm clocks, of course, just the rhythm of light, work, and sound. People went to sleep soon after sunset and woke before dawn, following nature's cues. The day began early, especially for workers, merchants, and slaves who needed to prepare goods or fetch water before the streets became crowded. Even emperors, by habit or vanity, often rose before sunrise, eager to prove how industrious they were. You rise from the bed, stretch your arms toward the ceiling, and feel the stiffness in your shoulders ease. You might laugh, but the Romans actually took their posture seriously, even in sleep. Some sources mention they preferred to rest on their sides, believing it aided digestion. And of course, in formal dining rooms, they reclined on couches during meals, because sitting upright was apparently for peasants. Your blanket slips from your lap as you stand, and you notice a few stray pieces of straw clinging to it. You brush them off, amused. The Romans didn't use sheets as we know them. They simply laid a blanket or two directly atop the mattress. The result? An experience somewhere between camping and being mildly hugged by agriculture. You make your way to the small window, unlatching the shutters. Cool air spills in, sharp with the smell of morning bread and smoke. The street below is beginning to wake. The clop of hooves, the chatter of voices, the distant splash of water at a fountain. Rome greets the day like a single living creature stretching its limbs. As you stand there, letting the air brush your face, you can't help but think about how different Roman nights were from ours. There were no glowing screens, no humming appliances, just the steady flicker of lamplight and the soft chorus of the city outside. Nighttime was communal in a strange way. People talked more, listened more, even told stories to the rhythm of the oil lamp's flame. Sleep, when it came, felt earned, not stolen between distractions. You glance back at the bed, its modest shape barely more than a shadow in the half-light. It doesn't look like much, but for the average Roman, it was enough. Privacy wasn't prized the same way we think of it now. Families often slept together, children nestled close to parents, slaves nearby in adjoining spaces. In wealthier households, the sleeping quarters might be grander. Decorated walls, soft pillows, embroidered linens. But even then, comfort was secondary to practicality. There's one odd little detail the historians love to mention. Some Romans believed it was healthier to sleep slightly upright. They prop themselves with cushions, convinced that lying completely flat could cause the body's vapors to rise dangerously. You picture a Roman philosopher arguing with his wife over the ideal sleeping angle and smile. Even the ancients, it seems, couldn't resist pseudoscientific bedtime advice. A sound interrupts your thoughts, a sharp crack, like wood splitting. You glance upward nervously. The insula above you groans as someone shifts furniture. It's a reminder of how fragile these tall buildings could be. Fires, collapses, and accidents were constant fears in Rome's crowded neighborhoods. The poet Juvenal once joked that the rich slept soundly in their villas while the poor prayed their roofs wouldn't fall in. Not exactly a lullaby. You walk back to your bed and run your fingers along the frame. The wood is dark and polished smooth from years of use. Someone cared for it once, maybe even built it by hand. You wonder how many people before you slept here. Workers, lovers, travelers, dreamers, each leaving behind a trace of their own quiet life in the city. And yet, even amid the noise and fragility, there's peace. The walls may be thin, but so are the barriers between you and history. You can almost hear the heartbeat of the ancient world beneath your fingertips. You sit again on the edge of the bed and take a slow breath. The room smells faintly of lamp oil and worn fabric. Through the open window, the morning light begins to shift from gray to gold. Soon, you'll leave this little space and step back into the bustling world outside, into the bakeries, the markets, the baths. But for now, the quiet still lingers, a soft hum of ordinary Roman life. One last quirky thought crosses your mind. Archaeologists once found an inscription from a Roman apartment wall that read, "I can't sleep because of the noise upstairs." Apparently, noisy neighbors are another timeless human invention. You chuckle softly and lie back down for just a moment, listening as the city wakes fully. The mattress rustles beneath you, warm and alive with the faint crackle of straw. You close your eyes and imagine what dreams must have filled these rooms. Dreams of cool baths, full stomachs, peaceful nights. Maybe that's what every Roman wanted at the end of the day. Not empire or glory, just a quiet place to rest their head. And as the sunlight stretches across the floor, touching the feet of your little household gods in their alcove, you feel a flicker of something familiar, something timeless. The comfort of belonging, even if just for a night, in the sleeping heart of ancient Rome. The night settles fully again, wrapping your little room in soft, flickering light. The streets outside have quieted, though quiet in Rome is always a relative term. You lie back on your straw-stuffed bed, staring at the ceiling beams above. They creak occasionally, old wood sighing under the weight of the day. You pull your wool blanket up to your chin, and for a moment, the sounds of the city seem to fade into the steady rhythm of your own breathing. And then, faintly, it begins. The night sounds. From the alley below comes the murmur of late drinkers staggering home. Their laughter bounces up the walls, joined by the distant squeak of cartwheels on stone. A baby cries somewhere in the next building, followed by the soothing hush of a mother's lullaby. A dog barks once, then twice, and then joins a chorus of unseen companions down the block. You sigh, realizing that ancient Rome, even in darkness, never truly sleeps. You glance toward the small alcove by your door, where the clay figurines of the Lares, your household gods, stand in their little shrine. Their smiles are calm and fixed, eternal watchers over the lives of ordinary Romans. You remember what the neighbor told you earlier. Never forget the Lares. They guard your home, your family, even your sleep. It's customary to whisper a short prayer before bed, thanking them for the day and asking them to keep away fire, thieves, and bad dreams. You rise quietly and move to the alcove. The air is cool against your bare feet. You take a small crumb of bread left from dinner and place it beside the figures, a humble offering. Then you murmur softly, just as a Roman might. Lares domestici, custodite nos. Household gods, protect us. The words feel ancient, but oddly intimate, as if the city itself leans in to listen.
A small clay lamp burns beside the shrine, its flame steady and golden. You watch it flicker, its light dancing across the little faces of your guardians. Romans often kept lamps burning through the night, believing the flame itself warded off evil spirits. Of course, it also occasionally burned the place down, but superstition and practicality rarely shared a bed. Historians still argue whether Romans feared ghosts or merely found comfort in the company of light. But either way, the ritual persists.
You return to bed, the faint smell of olive oil and smoke following you. The air is still, the kind of stillness that amplifies every tiny sound. You can hear the faint rustle of straw as you shift your weight, the low hum of wind outside brushing past the shutters. Somewhere far off, a temple bell sounds, a gentle clang marking the late hour. You close your eyes, trying to imagine what it felt like to fall asleep in a city of 1,000,000 souls. The warmth, the closeness, the faint pressure of humanity all around you. Every creak and whisper carries a life behind it. Someone turning over in their bed, someone tending a fire, someone whispering a final prayer before drifting off. It's strangely comforting, knowing the whole city breathes together like this. You drift for a while, not quite asleep, not quite awake. Then a sound jolts you, footsteps outside your door. Slow, uneven. A faint knock follows. You freeze. But then, a soft voice. Sorry, wrong floor. A neighbor, maybe, confused in the dim stairwell. You exhale and laugh under your breath. Even in ancient times, someone was always knocking at the wrong door after too much wine. You settle back down. The lamp by the shrine flickers lower, the flame thinning to a sleepy ember. Shadows sway across the walls like gentle waves. You focus on the small familiar noises, the breathing of the city, the faint scratch of a mouse in the wall, the rhythm of your heartbeat syncing with the night. You remember something you overheard earlier at the fountain, an old woman explaining that dreams were messages from the gods. The Romans took dreaming seriously, sometimes even consulting dream interpreters called conjectores. If you dreamed of water, it might mean good fortune, a fire, danger, a flying, divine favor. Entire books were written cataloging symbols and meanings. And if your dreams were particularly strange, well, you could always blame Mercury. He was said to carry them on his winged sandals. You smile faintly at the thought. Maybe Mercury's out there now, darting through the moonlight, delivering someone a dream about winning the chariot races, or discovering an extra loaf of bread in the oven. A trivial blessing perhaps, but a sweet one. Your thoughts wander. You picture the temples scattered across the city, the smoke of incense rising into the night sky, priests murmuring soft hymns. Rome at night is a city of duality, half practical, half mystical. Even the most skeptical Roman would still toss a coin into a fountain or whisper a prayer before bed. It's a habit older than logic, born from the desire to feel safe in the dark. A sudden gust slips through the shutters, carrying with it the scent of rain. You hear the faint patter of droplets on the tiled roof above, soft and steady. The sound fills the room like a lullaby. Rain in Rome is rare but cherished, washing the streets clean and cooling the heavy air. You imagine the city below, rooftops glistening, puddles forming between stones, reflections of lamplight rippling in the water. The air cools. You pull the blanket higher and sink deeper into the mattress. The straw rustles beneath you, warm and dry. Your mind drifts, hovering between thought and dream. Somewhere below, a voice hums a tune. It's distant and low, the kind of melody sung without words. Maybe a guard on patrol, maybe a mother soothing her child. It echoes faintly up the stairwell, blending with the rhythm of the rain. You feel your eyes growing heavier. And then, almost without meaning to, you whisper another small prayer, half habit, half comfort. May the lares keep the night gentle. The words dissolve into the air like smoke. You turn on your side, facing the little shrine. The lamp's flame is nearly gone now, a single red glow pulsing faintly in the wick. The figures of the lares are just silhouettes, two small guardians watching over your sleep. It's easy to see why Romans believed in them. Life in the city could be chaotic, noisy, unpredictable, but those little figures gave shape to peace, a reminder that someone or something was looking out for you. You think back to earlier, when you touched the Lionhead fountain and felt the cool water run through your fingers. You remember the baker's boy sweeping the steps, the smell of fresh bread, the dusty pink light of dusk. All of it drifts together now, fading like ripples on water. Historians still argue whether Romans were good sleepers. Some evidence suggests they rose in the middle of the night to pray or eat small meals, a practice called segmented sleep. Others believe they simply adapted to the city's noise and carried on, snatching rest whenever they could. Either way, sleep in Rome wasn't isolation. It was surrender amid the constant hum of life. You shift slightly, the blanket cocooning you in warmth. The rain eases outside, replaced by the rhythmic drip of water from a gutter. The smell of wet earth fills the air. Your eyes flutter closed, the edges of the room softening into shadow. Just before you drift off, a faint light moves across the wall, the reflection of a lantern swaying in the alley below. It dances like a passing dream, then fades. The city exhales. You're not thinking of emperors or wars now. You're thinking of small things, the warmth of the lamp, the rustle of straw, the steady comfort of two clay guardians smiling in the dark. The world narrows to that, and it's enough. Rome hums on outside your window, alive, ancient, eternal, and you, at least for tonight, are part of it. A pale light seeps through the cracks in the wooden shutters, thin as silk at first, then slowly widening until it touches the uneven floorboards. The city is stirring. You wake to the sound of hooves clattering over cobblestones, the faint rattle of a cart bouncing along the street below, and the rhythmic call of a water seller beginning his rounds. Morning has come to Rome. You blink in the dimness, eyes adjusting to the amber glow of your oil lamp, now little more than a smudge of smoke and a blackened wick. The air in your tiny apartment is cool, touched by the faint scent of ashes and dust. From the corridor comes a creak and a yawn as your neighbor starts her day, and through the thin wall you can hear her humming softly, probably as she pulls on her stola and ties her hair. It's not yet sunrise, but Rome wakes early. The city's daily rhythm depends on light. Before the sun grows harsh, workers must gather, ovens must blaze, and the first loaves must be ready for the markets. You stretch and rise, feeling the coarse weave of your blanket fall away. Your back aches slightly from the straw bed, but that's normal. Comfort was a luxury few in the insula enjoyed. You cross the small room to the wooden basin near the window. The water inside is cold and slightly metallic from the clay jar it came from. You splash your face, feeling the shock of cold pull you fully into the day. Romans rarely bathed at home. Why would they when the grand public baths awaited later? But in the mornings, a quick rinse was enough to clear the mind. The air outside hums faintly with life. You open the shutters and the light spills in. From your window, you can just glimpse a narrow slice of street, the faded red wall of a bakery, a donkey tethered to a post, the shadow of someone sweeping the pavement. Above, the rooftops glow pale orange with dawn, and in the distance, smoke rises like soft ribbons from the bakeries and kitchens that line the lower quarters. The smell reaches you even here. Warm bread, yeast, and a faint sweetness from honeyed cakes baking in clay ovens. It's one of the gentler smells of Rome, mixing briefly with the sharper scents of the city itself.
damp stone, dust, and the faint tang of the Tiber carried on the breeze. You pull on your tunic and sandals, wrapping a simple cloak around your shoulders. The stairwell outside your door is narrow and shadowy, the walls chipped from years of traffic. You descend carefully, listening to the muffled chatter from other rooms, voices murmuring about market prices, a child crying for breakfast, someone already arguing over rent. The ordinary music of Roman mornings. When you step out into the street, the world opens. The sky above is washed in pink and gold, and the sun is just beginning to rise over the rooftops. Long shadows stretch between the tall insulae, creating strips of light that guide your way. The street is alive already. Vendors are setting up their stalls, balancing baskets of figs, olives, and vegetables on their shoulders. A pair of water carriers, the aquari, move past, their wooden yokes creaking under the weight of bronze jugs filled from the public fountain. You pause for a moment at the corner, where the neighborhood fountain trickles steadily from the carved mouth of a lion. The water is cool and clear, drawn from the aqueducts that feed the city. You cup your hands and drink, feeling the freshness on your tongue. Water was one of Rome's proudest achievements, a gift from the hills, tamed and guided by the genius of Roman engineering. The baker across the street catches your eye. His shop, Pistrinum, is already glowing from the heat of the oven. He's pulling out rows of round loaves, marked with the baker's distinctive stamp so that customers could recognize their bread later in the communal oven. He nods to you, wiping sweat from his brow. "Fresh bread," he calls, his voice rough but cheerful. "Still warm." You step closer, and he passes you a loaf, hard crust, fragrant and steaming. You break off a piece, careful not to burn your fingers. The flavor is simple but comforting. Wheat, smoke, a hint of salt. This is breakfast for most Romans. Bread, maybe a few olives, sometimes dipped in wine if the day allows it. As you eat, the city grows louder. A crier passes by, announcing the latest public notices. "Games in the Forum this afternoon," he shouts. "Procession at the Temple of Vesta. Beware the pickpockets." You smile. Even news comes with a warning in Rome. Down the street, a woman balances a basket of herbs on her head while scolding a small boy who trails behind her, carrying a clay jug half his size. Two men argue in front of the tavern about the price of olive oil. A stray dog darts between them, chasing a pigeon. It's all alive, chaotic, and utterly ordinary. And somehow, in that ordinariness, there's beauty. You walk toward the edge of the district, where the streets widen and the light grows stronger. The air is warmer now. From somewhere nearby comes the steady clang of a blacksmith's hammer. The rhythm is hypnotic, metal on metal, ringing through the morning like a heartbeat. Around another corner, you glimpse a small temple, its steps littered with flower petals from last night's offering. The priest sweeps them away quietly, muttering prayers to Jupiter as the sunlight catches on his white robe. You pause, letting your mind wander to how many mornings like this Rome has seen. How many millions of people, over centuries, have woken to this same blend of sound and scent, this same rising light. Bakers, laborers, poets, and emperors alike all began their days beneath the same sun. Your thoughts drift to the humbler lives, the ones history rarely remembers. The street cleaner with his broom of twigs, the woman who mends tunics in the doorway, the children chasing each other through puddles. In a city of marble temples and grand amphitheaters, it's these quiet lives that make the city breathe. You stop at a small stall selling figs and dates. The vendor, a gray-haired man with sun-browned skin, greets you warmly. "Early start?" he asks, arranging his fruit with care. "As always," you reply. He laughs. "The gods favor the early risers," he says, handing you a fig. "Or at least, the bakers do." You thank him and take a bite. The fig is soft and sweet, its flavor lingering on your tongue. You savor it slowly, letting the morning unfold around you. In the distance, a rooster crows.
a sound swallowed almost immediately by the rumble of carts heading toward the forum. The city is fully awake now. You can see the faint haze of dust rising over the rooftops, shimmering in the sunlight. The smell of baking bread mixes with smoke from cook fires, perfume from a passing woman's cloak, and the faint, briny breath of the river. For a moment, you simply stand there, taking it all in. The air, the motion, the life. Ancient Rome in its most ordinary hour. No battles, no emperors, no grand speeches. Just people rising with the sun, doing what they've always done. You begin walking again, past the butcher's shop where a boy sharpens his knife, past the open courtyard where children play at throwing nuts, past the barber's chair where a man already sits, chin lifted, ready for his morning shave. Each doorway, each voice is a fragment of the same great mosaic. The light shifts as the sun climbs higher, painting the walls a deep gold. Somewhere, a temple bell tolls, a reminder that even in a city of labor and laughter, the gods are never far away. You glance back toward your little apartment, barely visible now among the cluster of rooftops. For a brief second, you picture the tiny clay lares still watching from the alcove, their silent faces glowing in the faint morning light. And then you smile. The day has begun. Rome is alive, and you are part of its heartbeat, walking, breathing, and waking with the eternal city as it stretches into another sunlit day. The morning sun climbs higher, gilding the rooftops and spilling down into the narrow streets. You follow the familiar hum of Rome's heartbeat, the shuffle of sandals, the chatter of merchants setting up stalls, and somewhere the faint whistle of a pan flute echoing off the walls. The air is already warm, tinged with smoke from early cooking fires and the smell of baked bread carried on the breeze. Your stomach rumbles quietly. You didn't eat much, just that bit of bread from the baker. But in Rome, breakfast is rarely a grand affair. Most people, unless they're wealthy or lazy, or both, take their morning meal standing, quick and simple. The word for it is iantoculum, and it's less a meal than a habit. A few bites of bread, maybe dipped in wine, some cheese if fortune smiles. But today, you're craving something a little more lively, and you know just the place. You turn down a side street lined with faded frescoes and uneven paving stones until you reach the small but bustling Thermopolium, Rome's version of a snack bar, and the city's beating culinary heart for anyone too busy or too poor to cook at home. The doorway is open to the street, framed by painted scenes of food and wine. Inside, a long stone counter stretches toward the back wall, embedded with round holes where large clay jars, dolia, sit snugly. They're filled with prepared foods, lentil stew, olives, chickpeas, bits of sausage, and sometimes the occasional seafood surprise that may or may not have been fresh since yesterday. The air inside smells glorious and slightly suspicious. A mix of garlic, oil, vinegar, and the faint tang of something simmering too long. You step closer to the counter and rest your hand on the cool marble edge, smooth from decades of hungry elbows. The innkeeper, a broad man with a wiry beard and a stained tunic, greets you with a grin. "Marnin', friend, hungry already?" "Always," you reply, smiling back. He gestures proudly at his jars. Lentils with leeks, stewed chickpeas, a little pork if you don't mind it salty, and wine, of course, sweet, watered, or honest. You raise an eyebrow. Honest meaning? He winks, meaning it might fight back. You chuckle and point to the lentils and some bread. He ladles the stew into a shallow dish, thick, fragrant, and dotted with herbs, then slides it across to you. You take a seat on a wooden stool near the entrance, where a bit of sunlight spills in from the street. The first spoonful is earthy and rich, the kind of flavor that sticks to your ribs. The lentils have been cooked slowly, probably since dawn, and the leeks add a mellow sweetness that softens the salt. You tear a piece of bread and dip it into the stew, letting it soak before biting down. It's simple food, but deeply satisfying. The kind of warmth that feels older than the city itself. Behind you, the thermopolium fills with the usual morning crowd. A pair of bricklayers sit nearby, already halfway through their wine. One of them complains about his back, the other about his foreman. Their laughter booms through the small space. A young woman in a dark tunic stops by the counter for olives and takes them to go, calling over her shoulder that she'll return at noon for stew. The innkeeper waves her off and turns back to his pots, stirring them with a wooden ladle. The smell of simmering chickpeas rises, and you close your eyes briefly, savoring it. Historians still argue, the innkeeper says suddenly, leaning on his counter as though reading your mind, whether Rome runs on politics or on lentils. You laugh. My vote's for lentils. He grins, satisfied. That's what I tell them at the forum, but they never listen. You sip a cup of watered wine, feeling its slight bite against your tongue. The sound of the street filters in, the clip-clop of hooves, the murmur of buyers haggling over fruit, and a child laughing as he chases a wooden hoop. It's a curious thing how these thermopolia stitch the city together. They're more than food stalls, they're small hubs of gossip and warmth, of shared laughter and quiet hunger. The poor rely on them entirely, since their cramped apartments have no kitchens. But even the middle-class plebeians stop by for the comfort of something hot, something communal. A man sitting beside you nudges your elbow. "First time here?" he asks. "Second," you reply, "but I always get lost finding it." He chuckles. "That's half the fun. You should try the sausage next time, though only if you trust the cook." "Do you?" you ask. "Not at all," he says cheerfully, raising his cup. "But I like to live dangerously." You share a laugh, the kind that comes easily among strangers when the morning sun is warm and the food is good. From where you sit, you can see the street outside framed like a living painting. The swirl of tunics, flashes of color from passing cloaks, the glint of bronze bracelets. A dog noses at the doorway, tail wagging hopefully. The innkeeper tosses it a scrap of bread. The dog catches it midair. The small crowd claps, half out of amusement, half from the simple joy of having something light to mark the morning. Above the door hangs a small bronze bell that jingles as a new customer enters. A young man carrying a basket of figs. He sets them down on the counter. "For you," he says to the innkeeper, "from my father's orchard." "Ah, the sweet kind or the sneaky sour ones," the innkeeper teases. "You'll find out soon enough." They exchange grins, and the figs join the day's menu. As you eat the last of your lentils, a quiet comfort settles in your chest. There's something deeply human about this space. Humble, noisy, imperfect, yet entirely alive. You can almost imagine the centuries peeling back. Soldiers, poets, beggars, all stopping here for warmth before the day ahead. You rest your elbows on the counter, tracing a faint crack in the marble. "Did this place survive the fire?" you ask the innkeeper. He nods proudly. "Barely. The gods were kind. The fire stopped 3 streets away. We say Vulcan got distracted by better wine." You smile, finishing your cup. "So it's blessed?" He shrugs. "Cursed, blessed, it sells lentils either way." Outside, the street is brighter now, filled with the gold of late morning. You rise, stretching your legs, and thank the innkeeper for the meal. He waves you off with a good-natured scowl. "Go, go, before the bathhouses fill. The thermae will chase you out if you're late." You step back into the sunlight, blinking. The city greets you like an old friend. Around the corner, you catch sight of a water carrier balancing his jugs, and a woman bartering with a butcher over cuts of pork. The smells of cooking, dust, and warm stone swirl together, a scent both ancient and familiar. For a moment, you glance back at the thermopolium. The laughter inside drifts out like music, mingling with the sounds of Rome. You smile to yourself. The day is only beginning. and already you've tasted the heart of the city. Your stomach is full, your spirit content, and the baths are calling. Time to move toward the steam, the chatter, and the promise of cool marble and warm water waiting beyond the next street. The city hums with its midday rhythm now. Sun high, streets bright, and the sounds of hammers, hoofbeats, and laughter weaving through the air. You've spent the morning wandering markets and alleyways, your senses filled with color and smell. Baskets of figs, jars of garum, steaming loaves from the baker's oven. But as the shadows shorten, a new thought begins to tug at you: food. In ancient Rome, eating isn't just a matter of hunger. It's a quiet ritual of rhythm and rank, a pattern that divides the humble from the powerful, the worker from the senator. You'll soon discover that what you eat and when says as much about your place in the world as your toga ever could. You duck into a shaded doorway to escape the glare. The air inside is cooler, heavy with the scent of olive oil and smoke. A small thermopolium, a street-side eatery, is already busy. Clay jars built into a marble counter hold warm stews and porridge. The owner, a stout man with a towel slung over his shoulder, nods in greeting. "First meal of the day?" he asks. You nod, sliding onto a wooden stool. "What's fresh?" "Barley porridge," he says. "A bit of cheese, maybe olives if you're lucky." This humble breakfast, the intaculum, is simple and fleeting, something to take on the go, eaten quickly before returning to work. Most Romans didn't have kitchens at home. Fire was risky, smoke unwelcome, and space scarce. So breakfast came from counters like this, served in clay bowls, eaten with fingers, washed down with watered wine. You try the porridge. It's warm, coarse, flavored with a drizzle of honey and a pinch of salt. The cheese beside it is soft but slightly sour, the olives briny and firm. Together, it's the kind of meal that steadies you rather than excites you. Fuel for another day of work in the eternal city. Outside, a group of laborers eat standing, balancing bread in one hand and mugs of wine in the other. A woman nearby sells roasted chickpeas from a small basket, calling out their price. 2 for an as, to anyone who'll listen. A child tugs at her tunic, begging for a handful. You take another spoonful of porridge, and your mind drifts toward how differently the rich begin their days. The patricians, lounging in their villas, enjoy fruit and fine bread, perhaps with eggs or even leftover roast from the night before. Some scholars say wealthier Romans sometimes skipped breakfast altogether, preferring to wait for prandium, the midday meal. But historians still argue whether this was an affectation or simply convenience. You finish your bowl and hand it back to the owner, who wipes it with a cloth and sets it aside for the next customer. The morning fades into afternoon, and the city grows hotter. You decide to wander a little before lunch. By the time the sun hangs overhead, the streets buzz with movement again. The scent of cooking drifts from every corner. Garlic sizzling in oil, fish being grilled, vegetables stewing in clay pots. Rome, in the heat of the day, smells alive. Lunch, or prandium, is not an elaborate affair. It's meant to refresh, not impress. You stop at a stall where a young woman sells cold cuts, slices of salted pork and bits of sausage laid out on a tray. She hands you a portion wrapped in fig leaves, and you thank her with a coin and a nod. Beside her, another vendor fries fritters of dough sprinkled with herbs. You can't resist grabbing one. The texture light and crisp, the taste faintly nutty. This is the true heart of Roman eating. Portable, practical, flavored by the street. As you walk, you pass a group of students sitting on a low wall, sharing bread and dried fruit while arguing over poetry. Horace is overrated, one insists. The others groan. You smile as you pass. They sound like every group of students that's ever lived. Further along, a delivery boy hurries past, carrying a basket toward the villa of his employer. You catch a glimpse inside. Grapes, cheese, smoked fish wrapped in waxed cloth. It's a reminder that for the upper classes, even lunch is curated, planned, and scented with luxury. By late afternoon, the city slows again. The sun's heat presses heavy on the stones, and shutters close against the brightness. For many Romans, this is the hour of rest. Shops go quiet and workers nap where they can. You find a shaded bench beneath an awning and sit, listening to the faint hum of the city as it dozes. Then, slowly, the light begins to soften, the air cools, and the thought of the evening meal, the great cena, starts to awaken across Rome like a whisper. The cena is more than dinner. It's the centerpiece of Roman social life, the dividing line between labor and leisure. For the poor, it might be a simple stew of lentils, onions, and barley, eaten from a shared pot. For the rich, it's an event, a spectacle of taste and conversation that can last for hours. You stand, brushing dust from your cloak, and follow the scent of roasting meat toward a larger house down the street. Through the open doorway, you glimpse a flicker of lamplight and hear laughter. A wealthy citizen is preparing for guests. Servants move briskly, arranging couches, polishing silver cups, and pouring wine into jugs. Inside, the dining room, triclinium, is a masterpiece of comfort. Cushioned couches line 3 sides of a low table, and the walls gleam with painted frescoes of myth and sea creatures. The air smells of roses and cinnamon. You imagine reclining there, propped on your left elbow as the first course arrives. Eggs with pepper and honey, olives, and cold cuts of meat. But even here, beneath the glitter and comfort, the rhythm remains the same. 3 meals marking the day like the beats of a drum. Small, larger, largest. Survival, satisfaction, indulgence. You think back to your own humble breakfast and smile. Rome may be divided by wealth, but hunger is the same in every class. A sudden gust of wind sweeps down the street, carrying with it a new scent, spices, roasted fish, and fresh bread. Someone nearby is cooking for the evening, and the air vibrates with anticipation. You turn a corner and find yourself back near the marketplace, now glowing in the amber light of dusk. Vendors pack away their goods, sweeping the day's dust into piles. Children chase each other between stalls, their laughter mixing with the soft rumble of voices. Somewhere, a musician strums a cithara, the notes drifting lazily over the square. You pause beside a food stall, watching as the owner ladles out bowls of lentil stew for passing workers. The mixture bubbles slowly, thick and rich, seasoned with garlic and a touch of garum. You take a bowl and find a quiet place to sit. The first spoonful is hearty and warm. The second is even better. As you eat, the light fades. Lamps are lit one by one, dotting the streets like tiny suns. Somewhere above, the first star appears, a pinprick of silver against the darkening blue. And as you finish your simple meal, you can't help but think, for all its grandeur, Rome's greatness lives in moments like this. Not in marble temples or golden armor, but in bread, laughter, and the shared rhythm of hunger and contentment that ties the city together. You lean back, content, the taste of lentils lingering on your tongue. The sounds of evening rise around you, soft, familiar, and endless. Another day in Rome, another meal shared with history itself. By the time you make your way through the winding streets and into the quiet quarter of marble villas, Rome's daytime roar has softened into an evening hum. The air smells of warm stone and olive oil, mixed faintly with the perfume of crushed roses that someone has scattered along the doorstep of a grand domus. Lamps flicker in the doorways, flames dancing behind thin sheets of mica, and distant laughter drifts out from open windows. You've been invited, or at least let's pretend you have, into one of these grand homes for the cena, the evening meal of the Roman elite. And if your humble tunic feels slightly out of place beside the silks and gold-threaded robes you'll see inside, don't worry. Tonight, you're only observing, half guest, half historian, all voyeur of ancient comfort. A servant opens the door, and immediately cool air greets you. The entry hall, or atrium, glows with lamplight reflected off polished marble floors. Water ripples softly in the impluvium,
a shallow pool designed to catch rain from the open roof above. You can smell the faint sweetness of incense, frankincense, maybe myrrh, burning somewhere deeper inside the house. "Your sandals, sir," murmurs a young slave, kneeling to unfasten the straps. Barefoot, you're guided through a corridor decorated with mosaics of dolphins and shells until you reach the heart of the home, the triclinium, the dining room. The space is intimate yet grand, bathed in a golden haze from dozens of oil lamps. 3 couches, each draped in embroidered fabric, surround a low table made of polished wood and bronze. A faint breeze stirs the curtains, and for a moment you catch the scent of roasted meat wafting in from the kitchen. Your host, a broad, cheerful man in his 40s, greets you warmly. "Welcome," he says, his voice full of practiced ease. "Recline and let the evening unfold." You do as he suggests, lying on your left side with your elbow propped on a cushion, a posture that feels strangely lazy, but is, in this world, the height of etiquette. Wealthy Romans believed that eating while reclining showed refinement and comfort. If you're wondering whether that's also why they frequently spilled wine on the furniture, well, historians still argue whether it was elegance or poor balance that caused most of those stains. A servant pours a small measure of wine into your cup and mixes it carefully with water. Pure wine, after all, is considered barbaric, something only uncultured northerners would drink without dilution. The ratio of water to wine can say a lot about a person's sense of restraint or pretension. Your host's blend, 3 parts water to 1 part wine, suggests someone who wants to appear virtuous, though you suspect he's got stronger stuff waiting for later. The first course arrives on silver platters, boiled eggs sprinkled with black pepper, olives stuffed with herbs, and little sausages glistening in oil. You take an olive, bite into it, and nearly hum in appreciation. The herbs are bright, thyme perhaps, and the brine has mellowed from storage in clay jars. "Did you know," your host says conversationally, "that our cooks use garum even in sweets?" You nod politely, though your eyebrows rise a bit. Garum, the infamous fermented fish sauce, is the lifeblood of Roman cuisine. It's poured on everything: meat, vegetables, fruit, even desserts. To Roman palates, it's ambrosia. To anyone from the future, it's, well, let's just say an acquired taste. From the corner of your eye, you notice a servant brushing crumbs from the mosaic floor with a small reed broom. The walls around you shimmer with frescoes, scenes of myth and pleasure, painted in reds and ochres. In one, Apollo lounges with a lyre. In another, a satyr offers wine to a nymph who looks politely unimpressed. The next course arrives, and this one is bolder. A dish of roasted dormice, yes, dormice, appears, stuffed with minced pork and honey, sprinkled with poppy seeds. You hesitate for a moment, but your host notices and grins. "They're surprisingly good," he assures you. "Crisp on the outside, tender inside." You take a cautious bite. He's right. It tastes rich and faintly sweet, though the thought of what you're eating lingers at the edge of your mind like a whispered dare. Still, you can't deny it's oddly delicious. As servants refill cups and clear dishes, conversation swells. The talk turns to politics, poetry, and gossip. One guest, a man with carefully curled hair and a ring on every finger, declares that Virgil's Aeneid is too long. Another counters that only men who fear gods find poetry tedious. They laugh, and the debate spins on, the words flowing as easily as the wine. Across the room, a musician plucks softly at a cithara, filling the pauses in conversation with threads of melody. The rhythm of the evening is unmistakable. Eat, talk, sip, laugh, repeat. The third course arrives, the prima mensa, and it's the centerpiece of the evening. A roasted piglet garnished with apples, platters of fish glazed in honey and vinegar, a stew of lentils and leeks seasoned with coriander. The smells mingle, sweet, smoky, savory, until the air itself seems edible. You sample a bit of each,
the flavors dense and layered. Romans love complexity. Sour paired with sweet, salty tangled with spice. You can taste cinnamon and pepper, expensive imports from far-off India. And it hits you how global Rome's appetite really is. Empires, after all, expand not just for gold or glory, but for flavor. Young servant brings a small dish to the table and announces proudly, "Peacock's tongues in saffron." You blink, unsure if you misheard. Your host chuckles. "A delicacy," he says, "though some think it's wasteful. Personally, I think the gods appreciate the gesture." You nod, unsure if the gods truly care about poultry tongues, but who are you to question divine taste? Between courses, rose petals are sprinkled on the floor, and guests dab their hands with perfumed cloths. The conversation drifts to stranger topics, omens, philosophy, the latest rumors from the palace. "Did you hear," someone murmurs, "that the emperor now eats only figs from his own garden? Says he can taste treachery in foreign fruit." "Historians will never agree whether he said that," another replies dryly, "but it makes a fine story." You smile into your cup. Even among Rome's elite, truth bends easily when shaped by good wine and better company. At last, the final course, the secunda mensa, arrives. Trays of fresh fruit, figs, dates, grapes. Cakes made from flour, honey, and ricotta. Bowls of nuts and almonds dusted with salt. The air is thick with sweetness now, and the mood softens. The music grows slower, the laughter warmer. A servant pours the last of the wine, and you sip it slowly, savoring the moment. Outside, the city hums softly, the sounds of distant streets fading into the night. Inside, the lamps flicker lower, casting long shadows over painted walls. You recline deeper into the couch, feeling your body sink into comfort. Somewhere behind you, a small fountain trickles faintly, its rhythm slow and hypnotic. You can't help but think about how meals like this, filled with excess and beauty, are as much about performance as nourishment. For the wealthy, dining is a kind of theater, every flavor a statement, every gesture part of the script. But beneath the luxury, the same simple truth lingers. People eat together to feel less alone. Your host raises his cup in a final toast. "To Rome," he says softly, "and to those who keep her alive, even in memory." You lift your cup, smiling. The wine glows like melted garnet in the lamplight. As you drink, the sound of the city fades further away, replaced by the soft murmur of voices and the faint, steady rhythm of your own heartbeat. Another small human sound in the endless music of Rome. When morning comes, the city hums again, alive, unbothered, and hungry. You leave behind the marble halls and perfumed air of the Domus, stepping once more into the warm, dusty streets of everyday Rome. The stones beneath your sandals are still slick from last night's brief rain, and the smell of the city, smoke, bread, people, animals, rushes to greet you like an old friend with questionable hygiene. The sun has just begun to climb over the rooftops, and already the streets are bustling. You pass through the Subura, one of Rome's liveliest districts, where the walls are streaked with graffiti, advertising everything from gladiator fights to tavern deals. Somewhere, a woman calls out prices for figs. Somewhere else, a child laughs as a dog chases a rolling loaf of bread. You're hungry, but not in the grand way of a senator preparing for a feast. It's the small workaday hunger of someone who needs a quick bite before facing the day. And in ancient Rome, that means street food. You follow your nose to a thermopolium, the Roman version of a takeaway counter. The word literally means place that sells something hot, which feels about as perfect as names get. A wooden awning shades a stone counter inset with round jars, dolia, each brimming with steaming stews or soups. The air is thick with the scent of lentils, garlic, and wine.
Behind the counter, the vendor, an older man with hands stained from years of cooking, looks up with a practiced grin. "Morning, friend," he says. "Try the chickpeas, they're fresh." You glance into the jars. There's chickpea porridge, a fish stew, and something that smells suspiciously like cabbage mixed with vinegar. You point to the chickpeas. The vendor nods, scoops a ladleful into a small clay bowl, and hands it over with a slice of rough bread. You take a seat on a nearby stone step, the bowl warm in your hands. The porridge is simple but comforting, earthy, garlicky, with a drizzle of oil that softens the flavor. It's filling in that honest way only humble food can be. The bread is coarse, flecked with bits of bran, because the finest white flour is reserved for the wealthy. You tear off a piece and dip it into the stew, catching a few soft beans on the crust. Across the street, a young woman sells pastries from a tray balanced on her hip. She calls out, "Honey cakes, warm honey cakes," in a sing-song voice that cuts through the noise. You can't resist. For a single coin, she hands you one. Golden, sticky, still warm from the brazier. You bite into it and feel the sweetness coat your tongue. It's simple joy wrapped in honey and flour. A boy beside you gnaws on a sausage from another stall. You can smell the pepper and fennel seeds even from where you sit. Roman sausages, Lucanica, are famous across the empire. They originated in Lucania, southern Italy, and the recipe is so popular that soldiers carried it wherever they went. One bite, they said, and you'd remember home. Historians still argue whether Rome's obsession with street food came from necessity or indulgence. Was it the working class keeping themselves fed between labor shifts, or the city's chaotic pace making meals on the go simply practical? Probably both. When you live in a place where space is scarce and kitchens are rarer than good plumbing, eating out isn't luxury, it's survival. You finish your meal and wipe your hands on a scrap of cloth. Around you, the thermopolium buzzes with customers, merchants, slaves, travelers. A man in a dusty cloak downs a cup of watered wine before hurrying off. A woman in a bright yellow shawl chats with the vendor about the price of garum. You can't help smiling at how alive it all feels. Messy, human, and familiar. You wander onward, deeper into the marketplace, drawn by sound and smell. Vendors shout their offers from behind wooden stalls. Oysters from Baiae, hot bread just baked, dates from Syria, sweet as a kiss. The air is a storm of aroma, smoke, salt, sweetness. A fishmonger fans away flies while slicing open a fat mullet. Beside him, a boy turns skewers of spiced meat over glowing coals, the fat sizzling as it drips. You pause near a stall selling pulse, Rome's most ancient dish, a simple porridge made from emmer wheat or barley. It's the food of the soldier, the laborer, the ordinary Roman. The vendor scoops a portion into a bowl and sprinkles it with herbs. It's plain but hearty, the kind of meal that built empires quietly while others took the credit. A passing philosopher, bearded and robe-wrapped, mutters to no one in particular. Luxury weakens the body, simplicity strengthens the soul. You nod absently, though your honey cake still clings to your fingers like a sticky rebuttal. As the morning deepens, the street musicians begin to play. A man with a small flute sends a reedy tune floating above the crowd. Children clap along. Someone laughs loudly. You lean against a wall, the sun warming your shoulders, and for a moment, you just listen. It's easy to forget you're standing in a place that's both ancient and timeless. Every corner hums with the rhythm of ordinary lives. A potter delivers wares stacked in straw. A washerwoman balances a basket on her head. A soldier sips cheap wine before returning to his post. Rome is full of grand monuments and stern marble gods, but it's here, among bread crusts and spilled wine, that the city truly lives.
You pass a popina, a small tavern that smells like fried fish and trouble. A few men lounge inside, already half-weighted drunk though the day has barely begun. The owner, wiping his hands on a rag, calls out, "Wine for a coin, a seat for free." You decline politely. Your day is still young, and your dignity still intact. For now.
Stepping back into the sunlight, you notice a small shrine tucked between two shops. A clay figure of Mercury, the god of merchants and travelers, smiles knowingly at passersby. Offerings of bread crusts and coins rest at his feet. You drop a crumb of your honey cake beside them. "For good fortune," you murmur. Mercury would approve. He's always had a soft spot for good food and quick hands. Somewhere nearby, a baker pulls fresh loaves from a communal oven. The scent is irresistible. Warm, grainy, faintly smoky. Communal ovens like this serve entire neighborhoods. Not everyone in Rome can afford their own kitchen, so families bring their dough here to be baked. The baker marks each loaf with a stamp, ensuring no one accidentally takes someone else's bread. Historians still argue whether those stamps were practical or just an early form of humble brag branding. You buy a small loaf and break it open. Steam curls upward, soft and fragrant. The crust crackles beneath your fingers. You take a slow bite, and for a moment, the noise of the market fades away. It's just you, bread, and sunlight, the most universal trinity there is. Simple food, eaten standing in the street, tastes different. It's honest. It reminds you that nourishment doesn't have to be elaborate to be divine. For all the silver platters and peacock tongues of the rich, most Romans live their lives like this, snacking between work, savoring small comforts in a world that moves too quickly. And maybe, you think, as you chew your last piece of bread, that's the real feast. Not the excess of marble halls, but the shared laughter of the marketplace, the warmth of food eaten in motion, the quiet satisfaction of being full enough. You brush the crumbs from your hands and take one last look at the lively street before heading toward the bathhouses. The day stretches ahead of you, sun blazing, stomach content, mind calm. Rome's heart beats loudest, not in the Senate or the Colosseum, but here, in the chatter, the clatter, and the scent of something delicious just out of reach. The sun has climbed high, casting a warm, golden glow over the streets of Rome, and you feel a gentle, insistent pull toward one of the city's greatest luxuries and everyday necessities, bathing. You've wandered through markets, tasted bread and honey, and observed the hum of street life. But now it's time for another ritual, one that combines hygiene, leisure, and a kind of quiet social theater. Bathing is not optional in Rome. Whether you are patrician or plebeian, the thermae or the smaller balneae punctuate daily life. You decide to visit a public bathhouse nearby, stepping into a narrow lane that smells faintly of herbs, smoke, and the faint tang of clay from water jars. The entrance is simple, a stone doorway marked by a small carved relief of Neptune. Inside, the temperature shifts immediately. The air is warm and slightly humid, thick with the mingling scents of olive oil, sweat, and aromatic herbs. You pause at the changing area, the apoditarium, where patrons leave their garments in small niches or hand them to attendants. Clothing is simple here, a tunic or cloak that will be stashed away, leaving only what's needed for the bathing ritual. You undress, feeling the cool air against your skin, and note the murmur of conversation around you. The bathhouse is not just for cleaning. It is a place to meet friends, hear news, or even discuss politics. Wealthy men and women might slip in just for the social ambiance, while laborers and merchants bathe out of necessity. Historians still argue whether these spaces were more for hygiene or for maintaining social bonds, but the line is clearly blurred. You move toward the first pool, the frigidarium, a cool water basin meant to awaken the senses. The water is surprisingly refreshing, the chill cutting through the morning's heat. You step in slowly, letting the coolness wrap around you like a soft cloak. It's shockingly invigorating, and you can't resist a small shiver that sends goosebumps across your arms. From here, patrons typically move to the tepidarium,
a warm room designed to ease the body into relaxation. The walls are lined with smooth marble, and the floors have a slight slope to channel away splashed water. You notice the faint aroma of rosemary and lavender, added to the air through small burners or diffusers. The heat is comfortable, the humidity just enough to soften muscles and calm the mind. You sink into the warm air, leaning against the marble bench, and watch others move around you. A man scrapes his skin with a curved tool, a strigil, collecting oil and dirt from the morning's work. You dip your hands in a small basin of water and rub a bit of oil into your arms, realizing that Romans often substitute soap with oil and a strigil, a method that, oddly enough, cleans thoroughly. There's a small fringe debate among scholars about whether this method was primarily hygienic or mostly ritualistic, but the end result is the same: skin smooth and glistening. A group of children squeals as they splash in the shallow pool, watched carefully by older siblings. Nearby, women chat softly while floating on the water's surface, their hair braided or pinned up to keep it dry. The sound of flowing water, laughter, and soft conversation creates a gentle, hypnotic rhythm. Even the occasional cough or splashing foot seems to fit into the bathhouse's unique cadence. After a while, you move to the caldarium, the hot room. Steam rises in gentle curls, and the air is thick and comforting. The floor is warm beneath your feet, and the heat penetrates your muscles, easing the stiffness from yesterday's walk and today's wandering. A shallow pool of steaming water invites you to sink in, and you do so carefully, feeling tension dissolve into the warmth. Around you, the experience is sensory and meditative. Marble walls glisten with condensation. The scent of oils lingers faintly on every surface, and the sound of dripping water becomes almost musical. Patrons discuss poetry and politics in low voices. Someone demonstrates a gentle massage technique, tracing the shoulder muscles with slow, deliberate movements. You dip your hands into the hot water, letting the warmth seep through your fingers and into your bones. The caldarium isn't just about relaxation. The Romans believed in the health benefits of heat. Steam could improve circulation, open pores, and even calm the mind. Some patrons use small herb bags filled with lavender or chamomile, pressing them to their skin or releasing them into the hot water. You follow suit, letting the soft fragrance fill your senses. Time seems to slow. The outside world, the markets, the carts, the shouting of vendors drifts away. The bathhouse exists in its own rhythm, a pocket of calm amid the city's constant motion. You notice the play of light on the wet marble, shadows dancing as water drips from the ceiling. A servant quietly sweeps near the pools, and the soft swish of the broom adds to the gentle chorus. Eventually, you return to the tepidarium, washing away the oil and sweat in lukewarm water. The movement between hot and warm, and eventually back to cool, is deliberate. It balances the body, calms the mind, and leaves the skin feeling supple. Some patrons choose to repeat the cycle, but even a single visit is enough to bring a sense of renewal. After your bath, you pause in the apoditarium to dry off. Linen cloths, soft and absorbent, are provided for the patrons, and you wrap yourself carefully. Dressing again, you feel lighter, refreshed, and oddly calm. The bathhouse, with all its steam, scent, and gentle social dance, has performed its ritual magic. Some Romans add massages with oils or apply scented pastes to the skin. You watch a young man have his shoulders rubbed with a mixture of olive oil and herbs, and you can't help but notice how leisurely, even indulgent, the entire experience feels. Historians still debate whether such practices were truly health-driven or largely a display of wealth and refinement, but it's undeniable that the rituals fostered a sense of community and relaxation among Romans of all classes. You step out into the courtyard, the sun now slanting low in the sky. The heat is softer, the light golden. The bathhouse behind you continues to hum with life, footsteps, laughter, conversation, and the gentle splash of water. You pause for a moment, letting the atmosphere imprint on your senses, appreciating how this daily ritual shapes not just bodies, but moods, rhythms, and the invisible patterns of Roman life. As you walk back into the streets, the city feels different. The heat is less oppressive, the sounds less harsh. You notice more vividly the colors of market stalls, the smell of roasted bread, and the chatter of people. Bathing, it seems, is more than just cleaning. It's a lens, a way to slow down, to perceive the world more gently, more fully. You pass a small shrine tucked between shops, Mercury smiling benignly from his perch. You nod in passing, recalling the soft scents, the warm pools, and the gentle laughter of children in the bathhouse. Even the busiest city moment can be softened by such rituals, by careful attention to water, warmth, and quiet observation. And as you continue walking, you realize something. Bathing in Rome is not a private act. It's a shared, public, calming ceremony that ties the citizens together, much like bread or wine or the morning sun. Every splash, every scent, every laugh contributes to the invisible, ongoing life of the city. The bath, the ritual, the rhythm. Rome has taught you that even in a world of chaos, small moments of deliberate care can transform ordinary days into something enduring, something softly luminous. You take a deep breath, inhaling the familiar scents of the street, bread, herbs, dust, and the faint hint of water. Your body feels renewed, your mind feels lighter, and somewhere in the quiet corner of the bustling city, you carry the calm of the bathhouse with you, a small personal treasure in the midst of endless motion. The sun leans toward the horizon, painting the city in soft amber and rose. Shadows stretch long across the cobblestones, and the air carries the warmth of the day's heat mixed with the faint coolness creeping in from the Tiber. You've wandered streets, tasted food, bathed, and now the evening calls, a time of subtle transformation, where Rome slows just enough for reflection, socializing, and small domestic rituals. You step into a quieter lane, where vendors are packing their stalls, the scent of roasted grain and smoked fish lingering faintly in the air. The city has shifted into its second rhythm, work winding down, homes preparing for the night. You pass a woman at her doorstep, arranging small clay lamps to illuminate the path. A line of oil lamps glows softly, flickering against the rough walls, casting long, wavering shadows. Even in the ordinary streets, the Roman sense of ceremony is never far. In many households, the evening begins with personal preparation, washing one's hands and face again, brushing hair, and sometimes anointing the body with scented oils. Wealthy Romans keep fragrant pastes made of crushed flowers, herbs, or even imported spices. Some apply these to skin, others rub them into their hair. You follow the habit with a small dab of olive oil on your forearms, enjoying the subtle fragrance as the sun dips lower. Historians still argue whether these rituals were practical, aesthetic, or a combination of both. But the effect is undeniably soothing, a gentle pause before dinner. You wander toward a domus where the evening cena will take place. Lamps have been lit in windows, signaling hospitality. In Rome, arrival and departure are rituals themselves. Guests are greeted with a nod or a soft salve. Sandals are removed and hands are washed, symbolically and practically, before reclining for the meal. Even the posture has its purpose. Reclining on the left side, supported by cushions, was considered civilized and refined. You mimic the motion, allowing the slight awkwardness to settle into familiarity. As the table is arranged, you observe the careful choreography. Servants move with practiced precision, placing bowls of fruit, jugs of wine, and platters of prepared food. The air smells of roasted meats, herbs, and the faint sweetness of fruit preserved in honey. It's an orchestra of aroma. You notice a small dish of dormice stuffed with minced pork, an extravagant touch that some might call indulgent. You smile, remembering the earlier breakfast on the street and the humble satisfaction of simple bread.
Guests exchange pleasantries, comment on the weather, or discuss minor matters of commerce. A young man mentions a recent performance at the theater, and others nod, murmuring their opinions. Some lean back to listen, others to contribute. You realize that the act of eating is inseparable from dialogue. Food nourishes the body. Conversation nourishes the mind.
A servant passes a bowl of olives, and you pick one, savoring its briny flavor. Across the table, a host offers a glass of watered wine. You raise it in polite acknowledgement, noting how even wine etiquette has its rhythm. Sip, savor, converse. Drinking is a social act as much as a personal one. Between bites, the discussion drifts to larger topics: recent political events, rumors from the Senate, debates over philosophical writings. One guest speaks of Stoic teachings, another defends Epicurean pleasures. The tension is gentle, intellectual rather than confrontational. You lean in, curious but relaxed, letting the conversation wash over you like soft waves. Historians still debate the prevalence of philosophy in daily Roman dining, but it's clear that even casual meals often contained elements of reflection and debate. While the conversation unfolds, the room hums with secondary rhythms. A small servant fans the lamp flames, keeping the smoke low. Another rearranges cushions for comfort. You notice the subtle choreography. Each movement is calculated to maintain grace and fluidity. Even the act of pouring water or passing bread has a rhythm, a pattern that keeps the evening from feeling chaotic. The next course arrives, a platter of cooked vegetables with herbs and olive oil, accompanied by fish and small cuts of meat. The scents are rich but not overwhelming. You taste slowly, noting the balance of flavors: the earthiness of lentils, the salt of the fish, the sweetness of honeyed fruit. There's a deliberate contrast between the fresh, simple flavors and the richer, more luxurious touches, mirroring the careful balance of Roman life itself. Someone mentions a recent visit to the baths, and your mind drifts back to the warmth of the caldarium, the faint scent of rosemary and oil, and the gentle, hypnotic rhythm of the water. You smile inwardly, recognizing the continuity: bathing, eating, conversation, all threads in a seamless fabric of daily life. Even the simplest household routines carry echoes of the city's greater pulse. Outside, the evening light softens further, spilling through open windows and falling across the polished floors. Shadows deepen, and the flickering lamplight gives everything a gentle golden halo. You notice how even minor gestures, passing a bowl, offering a taste, wiping a spill, are elevated into small rituals. The ordinary is made significant through attention, care, and shared presence. A servant enters with a small tray of fruit and pastries for dessert. Honeyed cakes, fresh figs, and nuts are laid out with quiet precision. You select a fig, bite into it slowly, and notice its natural sweetness. The flavors linger, softening the edges of the day's activity, preparing the body for calm. Dessert is brief but meaningful, a closing note that signals both satisfaction and transition. Conversation softens as the meal concludes. Guests stretch, lean back, or begin gentle conversation about less weighty matters: children, neighbors, small pleasures. The pace has slowed. The urgency of the day has ebbed. Even those who were lively earlier now adopt a softer cadence, voices lower, movements more measured. It's a conscious easing into the night. In the corner of the room, a small water basin provides the final touch. Hands and face are washed, oil and crumbs removed, leaving a sense of completion. You notice the ritualistic rhythm again, the way Romans frame every activity with preparation and closure. Bathing, dining, and conversing are not isolated events.
Each flows into the next with deliberate grace. You rise, stretching slightly, feeling the warmth of the room and the gentle fullness of your stomach. The lamps flicker in their mica enclosures, casting delicate patterns on the walls. You step toward the door, aware of the outside world waiting, yet carrying with you the calm intimacy of the evening. The streets outside are quieter now, softened by the lengthening shadows, the faint scent of dusk, and the promise of rest. Pausing at the doorway, you glance back one last time. The room hums faintly with residual warmth, laughter, and conversation. You carry a sense of this rhythm with you, the harmony of preparation, meal, reflection, and gentle sociality. Evening in Rome is not just a transition to night. It's a carefully orchestrated symphony of small, deliberate acts, each designed to nourish body, mind, and spirit. As you walk back toward the central street, the first stars peek through the dusky sky, faint and steady. Lamps glow along the lanes, casting gentle reflections on the stone and creating a world softened by light and shadow. You notice how even the ordinary, children playing, the smell of baking bread, a distant bell, has been transformed by time and attention into a subtle, comforting rhythm. This, you realize, is the quiet beauty of Roman evenings. The measured, repeated rituals of washing, eating, and conversation that structure time into something enduring and gentle. Even in a city of chaos, traffic, and noise, there exists a rhythm that soothes the mind, shapes the body, and connects the individual to the life of the city as a whole. With each slow step back toward your own dwelling, you feel a sense of continuity and comfort. Rome, in its everyday details, has taught you that evening is not merely the end of the day. It's a carefully tended passage, a time to prepare, nourish, and quietly celebrate existence. The city breathes with you, alive yet softened, and you move through it carrying its warmth, its rhythm, and its subtle, enduring magic. As dusk deepens, Rome transforms once more. The heat of the day softens into a gentle warmth, and the city takes on a quieter, more intimate personality. Street vendors have packed away their wares, children's laughter fades from alleys, and the distant calls of carts or animals are more subdued. You move through the streets with a slower pace now, aware that nightfall brings its own rhythms, its own rituals, and for many Romans, the cena, the evening meal, remains a centerpiece of life, sociality, and gentle indulgence. You pass open doorways where soft lamplight spills onto the stones. Inside, families and neighbors prepare for supper. The smell of roasted vegetables, bread baking, and stewing meats drifts through the air. In some homes, small oil lamps flicker on low shelves, casting dancing shadows and bathing walls in warm amber. You notice the simple grace of these lights. Even in modest homes, lamps provide not just illumination, but a quiet ambiance that signals the transition from the labor of day to the calm of night. The evening meal in a modest household differs little in ritual from that of wealthier citizens, though the ingredients and presentation are simpler. You imagine yourself entering a small insula, a crowded apartment building where the family gathers around a wooden table or even on benches. A thin loaf of bread rests in the center, accompanied by bowls of lentils, pulses, or vegetables. Perhaps a small piece of salted fish or a few olives adds flavor. You pour a little water into cups, noting the soft clink of clay against wood. The simplicity is humbling, even comforting, a reminder that sustenance itself can be its own kind of luxury. As you eat, you notice the interplay of light and shadow. Oil lamps glow softly, their flames reflected in simple pottery, the flicker creating movement across walls and faces. The effect is soothing, almost hypnotic. It's a setting that encourages conversation, reflection, and the small, satisfying rituals of evening. A quiet murmur of voices carries from one room to another. Someone laughs softly. A child claps hands in delight.
Night in Rome has a warmth all its own. In larger households, the evening meal can be more elaborate. Trays of roasted meats, stewed vegetables, and fresh bread may arrive in careful succession. Wine, diluted with water, is poured from jugs into cups for each guest. The serving itself is a dance of attention and etiquette. You lean back in your chair, or imagine reclining on a couch, and notice how every action, from passing a dish to offering a taste of honeyed fruit, carries a subtle grace. Even small gestures are amplified in the soft lamplight, creating a sense of ceremony that transforms ordinary sustenance into shared experience. A common ritual in wealthier homes is the pouring of wine in measured doses. It is drunk slowly, in conversation, and always paired with gentle reflection or storytelling. Someone might recount a recent visit to the Forum, discuss a philosophical idea, or share news from a distant province. Each topic drifts in and out, rising and falling in intensity, like the soft waves of a river. Historians still argue how often philosophy truly featured in these meals, but it's clear that conversation, amusement, and gentle reflection were essential components of dining. You notice that the pace of the evening is deliberate. Unlike the hurried lunches of the market, the night meal is a measured affair. Each bite is taken with attention. Each sip of wine is slow, deliberate, and carefully savored. The meal is as much about presence, awareness, and quiet satisfaction as it is about nutrition. Even the youngest family members are encouraged to follow this rhythm, learning through observation the art of gentle consumption. Across the room, a servant places small bowls of fruit and nuts on the table. Figs, dates, and grapes are arranged neatly. Almonds and walnuts fill tiny dishes. The fragrance is subtle, the colors muted but inviting. You pick up a fig and bite slowly, feeling the soft sweetness coat your tongue. It's a quiet pleasure, amplified by the low light and the soft murmur of family voices. In modest homes, lamps are often simple clay vessels filled with oil, their flames flickering gently. You notice the dance of light on walls and floors, the way shadows stretch and shrink with each movement. In wealthier homes, lamps may be bronze or decorated, sometimes featuring intricate designs or miniature figures. Regardless of material, the effect is the same. The gentle, soothing glow marks the passage of time and guides the household from day into night. Some Romans take the evening meal further with small desserts or sweetened wine, flavored with honey or spices. You imagine a small family passing a cup of diluted wine, sharing a few pieces of dried fruit, and laughing softly as stories are told. The act of sharing, of tasting slowly and deliberately, is at the heart of the ritual. Even the simplest home can feel like a sanctuary when the evening is approached with care. Outside, the city itself reflects the same gentle rhythm. Torches flicker along streets, and occasional lanterns swing softly from doorways. The air is cooler now, scented faintly with herbs, bread, and the earthy aroma of stone warmed by the day. Sounds are muted but present. A dog barks in the distance, footsteps echo faintly, and the occasional cart rattles over cobblestones. Rome is alive, yet softened under the calm of night. As the meal concludes, hands and faces are washed once more. The final act of evening ritual is often simple yet intimate. Removing crumbs, cleansing the body, preparing for rest. In wealthier households, scented oils or lotions may be applied. In modest homes, water and cloth suffice. The emphasis is on completion, on moving from the act of nourishment into a state of calm and readiness for sleep. You lean back in your seat, or imagine yourself reclining on cushions, feeling the satisfaction of food, the warmth of the room, and the gentle glow of lamps. Conversation softens, laughter becomes quieter, movements slow. There's a natural cadence to this part of the day, a rhythm that prepares mind and body for night. Even the simplest home, with minimal food and low lamplight, can achieve the same sense of completion and tranquility. In wealthier homes, the meal may conclude with brief entertainment, music, poetry, or storytelling. A lyre is plucked softly in a corner. A servant reads a few lines from a poem. The rhythm of sound, like the flickering lamplight, adds another layer of sensory pleasure. In modest homes, the evening may be quieter, but the principles remain. Food, light, conversation, and attention to small details create a gentle, immersive experience that bridges the day and night. Finally, as the lamps burn low, you notice the transition from activity to rest. The food has been eaten, hands washed, stories told, and lights softened. The household, whether modest or grand, moves toward the last stage of the day: reflection, relaxation, and preparation for sleep. In the quiet, the scents linger: the sweetness of honey, the fragrance of herbs, the warmth of oil lamps. Each element contributes to a calm, soothing environment, a gentle closing of the day's cycle. You rise, brushing crumbs from your tunic, and step toward the doorway. Outside, the night air carries the faint chill of approaching darkness, mixed with the warm residue of the day. Lamps glow in windows and along streets, casting gentle amber reflections across the stones. Children laugh softly in distant alleys, and a dog pads quietly along a quiet lane. The city is alive, yet hushed, as if breathing slowly, preparing itself for the night. The ritual of evening meals, lamplit rooms, and shared conversation leaves you with a sense of calm. The small details, light, warmth, taste, and gentle social rhythms combine to create a subtle, persistent harmony. Even in the modest homes, the evening is a carefully orchestrated time, marked by attention, ritual, and the quiet pleasures of presence. And as you walk through the soft-lit streets, carrying the memory of food, lamps, and conversation, you feel the gentle arc of the day close. Night in Rome is not merely darkness. It is a carefully tended, immersive experience, where food, light, and human connection guide the body and mind toward rest. With the evening meal concluded, you step back into the streets, and Rome feels entirely different now. The heat of the day has softened into a gentle warmth, carrying the faint sense of wood smoke, baking bread, and the lingering aroma of olive oil from distant kitchens. Street noise has diminished, replaced by the quiet rhythm of a city settling into night. You move slowly, savoring the calm, aware that the hours after sunset are a distinct part of Roman life, rich with small pleasures, social routines, and moments of reflection. Street lamps, oil-filled clay vessels, sometimes set in small bronze holders, cast flickering golden pools on the worn stones. Shadows dance along walls, softening the edges of the buildings and giving ordinary streets an almost magical glow. You notice the quiet beauty of this lighting. Even the humblest lane is transformed, the rough surfaces of plaster and stone rendered poetic under the gentle lamplight. As you wander, you encounter neighbors lingering outside their homes. Some sit on doorsteps, legs crossed, sharing quiet conversation while keeping an eye on children playing in the alleys. Others engage in minor trades, finishing small tasks before retiring for the night. The pace is unhurried. In this part of the day, everything seems slightly slower, intentionally measured. The city moves at the rhythm of night, not the frenzy of morning or afternoon. You pause near a small fountain tucked between buildings. Water trickles over the carved stone edge, producing a soft, constant murmur. A few people linger here, filling small pitchers or washing hands before heading home. The fountain's gentle sound is soothing, a subtle underscore to the quiet conversations and distant footsteps. It strikes you that Romans integrated water into everyday life, not only for utility, but also for sensory pleasure. Sound, sight, and touch combined to create an understated serenity. In some parts of the city, small popinae, or taverns, remain open. They are modest, dimly lit spaces where patrons sip watered wine, nibble on leftover bread, and converse softly. You step inside one briefly and inhale the familiar scents: smoke, wine, roasted beans.
A few men play a simple game with dice, laughing quietly, while a musician plucks a lyre in the corner. The noise is controlled, intimate, and contained. Nighttime leisure, for many Romans, is as much about moderation as enjoyment. Historians still debate how prevalent such tavern visits were, but evidence suggests they offered a blend of refreshment, gossip, and community. You continue your walk, noting the small domestic rituals visible from the street. In some homes, clay lamps burn on shelves, signaling that evening prayers or final household activities are underway. Women move quietly through rooms, finishing chores, tucking children into beds, or arranging small offerings of bread or fruit at household shrines. The practice of lorarium devotion, the veneration of household gods, was deeply woven into daily life. Even after the day's labor and meals, the Romans observed these quiet acts, a blend of superstition, gratitude, and mindfulness. Some alleys are lively in their own understated way. Children dart between shadows, playing gentle games, their laughter soft and fleeting. Dogs trot along quietly, sniffing and exploring. The faint sound of a harp or flute drifts from an open window as a musician practices for the evening. The sensory tapestry of the night, the smell of bread and oil, the murmur of voices, the gentle clink of pottery, reminds you that even in a city of stone and marble, life persists in subtle, comforting rhythms. You stop briefly to observe a small group gathered outside a household. They are engaged in quiet conversation, sharing news from nearby neighborhoods and perhaps a story or two from the day. The voices are soft, careful not to disturb anyone nearby. But the act of communal storytelling underscores an important part of Roman night: social connection. Even after a day filled with labor, markets, and meals, people sought moments of shared attention, comfort, and belonging. As you continue, you notice that many streets have temporary vendors offering small nighttime treats, figs, dates, nuts, and occasionally sweetened wine. These offerings are simple, yet they underscore the city's continuous, adaptive rhythms. Nighttime in Rome is not a pause. It is a slower, more intimate continuation of life, where food, drink, conversation, and gentle play are balanced against rest. You come across a small courtyard where a family sits around a lamp, engaged in conversation while children play nearby. The soft orange light illuminates faces, creating a sense of warmth and security. You pause to notice how architecture itself, narrow streets, enclosed courtyards, high walls, frames these moments, sheltering ordinary rituals from the harsher sounds of the broader city. Even the arrangement of space contributes to a sense of calm, ensuring that human rhythms and urban life coexist harmoniously. In wealthier neighborhoods, the nighttime rituals have a slightly different flavor. Larger homes feature courtyards with fountains or small gardens. Lamps illuminate polished marble and painted walls. Patrons may enjoy light music, read poetry aloud, or engage in gentle conversation with guests. The same principles remain: moderation, attention to detail, and a slow, mindful pace. Historians still debate whether these rituals were primarily for pleasure or a performance of status, but the outcome is undeniably serene: a crafted, controlled evening atmosphere. Walking deeper into the city, you notice small shrines tucked along streets or near fountains. Offerings of bread, wine, or flowers remain for household deities. The act is small, quiet, and repetitive, but it creates continuity, a pattern linking past and present, workday and night, the individual to the larger rhythms of the city. Even a passerby, aware of these details, senses the soft continuity and respect embedded in Roman life. Some of the quieter streets are lined with benches or stone steps where people rest briefly, exchanging a few words or simply observing. The pace of foot traffic has slowed, and you feel the meditative quality of the night settle into your mind. Each step is soft, each breath aware, each observation a gentle entry into the calm pulse of urban life after sunset. The soundscape of the evening is subtle but alive.
You hear water dripping from fountains, soft laughter from children, the distant clatter of an animal cart returning home. Occasionally, a flute or small harp drifts from a window, blending with the city's natural nocturnal sounds. It strikes you that Romans cultivated not just physical comfort, but sensory harmony. The interplay of sight, sound, and scent is orchestrated, even if unconsciously, to ease the transition from day to night. You pause near a quiet piazza, where the last rays of sunlight have vanished. Lamps burn steadily along streets and balconies, casting long, gentle shadows. The air carries the faint sweetness of figs, the earthy scent of baked bread, and the distant aroma of herbs smoked for evening warmth. You inhale slowly, allowing the combination of familiar smells, subdued sounds, and warm light to sink into your mind. It's calming, rhythmic, almost hypnotic, a sensory lullaby that wraps the city in quietude. Passing back toward the main streets, you notice small interactions that exemplify Roman nighttime leisure. A neighbor handing a borrowed loaf back to another, a child stopping to admire a flickering lamp, a young man returning quietly from the forum. Even in a bustling city, the night creates space for reflection, observation, and appreciation of small pleasures. The ordinary becomes extraordinary when seen through the lens of slow, attentive presence. Eventually, you find yourself in a quieter lane, away from even the gentle hum of social activity. The warmth of the day has faded, leaving a soft chill that brushes your skin. Lamps burn steadily, flickering against the walls of homes and illuminating small windows. The city feels alive yet softened, its rhythms deliberate, its details intimate. You notice how the combination of light, sound, scent, and human presence creates a gentle harmony, a deliberate, calming orchestration of urban life after dark. The nighttime streets of Rome are a lesson in moderation, observation, and shared experience. Life continues, even in quiet moments. People converse, eat, watch, and walk. Every sensory detail, lamplight, the murmur of water, the scent of oil and bread, contributes to the city's unique evening rhythm. Even as darkness deepens, the city's pulse remains gentle, attentive, and connected. And as you continue toward your final destination for the night, you carry with you the quiet hum of the city, the subtle movements, soft sounds, and gentle light that mark the transition from day to night, preparing body and mind for rest, reflection, and gentle dreams. The night deepens and Rome quiets further, leaving only the faint, persistent glow of lamps and the soft chorus of distant footsteps, murmured conversations, and the occasional splash from a fountain. You find yourself back at your dwelling, or imagining one in the bustling city, a modest home or apartment in an insula, where the final preparations for sleep unfold. In Rome, the day's end is treated with deliberate care. From lighting lamps to arranging bedding, from small personal rituals to household prayers, every action signals the gentle closure of daily life. You start by checking your lamp. A simple clay vessel filled with oil, a wick burning steadily, provides a steady glow for the room. The flame dances slightly in the faint night breeze, casting elongated shadows across walls and floors. Light is precious at night. The city is largely dark without oil lamps, so each small flame carries both utility and comfort. Some wealthier homes have bronze or glass lamps, often decorated with figures or inscriptions. The material may vary, but the effect, soft illumination that encourages calm, is consistent across social strata. Next comes the matter of clothing. In the bedroom or sleeping area, you prepare a simple linen tunic for the night. Clean, soft, and breathable. It is the Roman equivalent of modern pajamas. Wealthier citizens might add a light woolen wrap for warmth, especially in cooler months. The act of changing into night clothing signals a shift from activity to rest, a conscious acknowledgement that the day is concluded and the body should begin to relax.
Historians still debate how strictly ancient Romans adhered to nighttime clothing routines, but evidence suggests a consistent awareness of comfort and practicality. You pause to arrange your bedding. In modest homes, this might be a simple mat stuffed with straw or wool, laid on the floor, or in a raised wooden frame. In wealthier households, mattresses are thicker, sometimes layered with wool or feathers, covered with linens washed and scented with mild oils. Cushions and pillows are placed carefully for support. The ritual of arranging bedding is as much about comfort as it is about signaling to the mind that rest is imminent. Next, you wash your hands and face in a small basin of water. Even a brief cleansing, splashing cool water over skin, has a surprisingly calming effect. Some Romans follow with a light application of oil or herbal paste, scented with lavender, rosemary, or chamomile, softening the skin and adding a gentle aroma to the night. The sensory comfort of soft touch and subtle fragrance eases muscles and prepares the mind for slumber. A small ritual often accompanies bedtime, offering thanks at the lararium, the household shrine. A flickering lamp or candle is placed before small figurines of the lares or penates, guardians of the home. You might leave a tiny piece of bread, a few drops of wine, or a sprinkle of incense as a gesture of gratitude and protection. Even if you do not believe in divine intervention, the act itself is soothing, a structured way to end the day with mindfulness and intentionality. These small gestures cultivate a sense of continuity and connection, linking day to night, life to ritual. You settle into bed, adjusting cushions to support your head and neck. The room is quiet, except for distant city sounds. An occasional cart, a dog padding along a lane, the faint hum of late-night conversation from neighboring homes. These sounds, once distracting, now serve as a gentle lullaby. The soft rhythm of life beyond your walls reinforces the sense of belonging and continuity. Rome's pulse is always present, even in sleep. Sleep preparation in Rome is not merely functional. It's designed to soothe and signal mental transition. Some Romans, particularly the wealthy, follow a brief evening routine of reading or listening to poetry, recounting the day's events or contemplating philosophical thoughts. Even a simple reflection, considering what was achieved, what was learned, or what might come tomorrow, helps settle the mind. Historians still debate how widespread such practices were, but literary sources suggest that thoughtful nighttime reflection was common among literate Romans. The arrangement of your sleeping space matters as much as the rituals themselves. You note the positioning of your lamp, the soft folds of linens, the gentle warmth from the walls retaining the day's heat. Each element, no matter how small, is chosen or maintained with care. The goal is consistent, a smooth transition into rest, minimizing distraction, optimizing comfort, and promoting a sense of security. Sometimes, Romans employed small auditory cues to encourage relaxation. In wealthier homes, soft music might play from a lyre or a flute. In modest homes, the natural rhythms of the city, the hum of insects, distant conversations, or the gentle splash of fountains performed a similar role. These sounds, continuous yet subdued, are comforting. They mark the continuity of life while gently nudging the mind toward rest. You lay down fully, feeling the weight of the day ease from your shoulders. The mattress, mat, or bedding gives just enough support. Cushions cradle your head. The scent of olive oil and herbs lingers faintly in the air, comforting and familiar. Even minor details, the angle of the pillow, the slight tilt of your body, the fold of a blanket, contribute to a sense of stability and ease. These small attentions demonstrate that sleep, like other daily activities, is a cultivated experience, a ritual as intentional as bathing or dining. As you adjust into your resting position, your mind wanders back over the day's events. The morning streets, the smell of fresh bread, the warmth of the baths, the evening meal, and the flickering lamps all come together as a gentle montage. The combination of physical comfort, sensory detail, and mindful reflection primes you for deep rest. You notice your breathing slow, muscles unclench, and the mind drift toward the edge of sleep, buoyed by both routine and the quiet rhythm of the city. Outside your window, or imagined from your modest dwelling, you might glimpse the faint glow of lamps on distant streets. The night is alive, but softened, maintaining a subtle cadence that mirrors your own internal slowing. The Romans understood that the environment contributes as much to sleep as the bed itself. Light, temperature, sound, and scent are carefully integrated into nightly practice. Even the hum of distant activity is filtered, reinterpreted as rhythm rather than disruption. If a small breeze enters the room, it carries the combined scent of the city, olive oil, herbs, baked bread, and faint smoke. The sensation is gentle, enveloping, and grounding. Each breath reinforces the transition from active day to contemplative, restful night. You adjust slightly to enjoy the airflow, the subtle change in temperature, and the reassurance of familiar scents. As your eyes grow heavier, you notice the enduring principles of Roman sleep preparation: a deliberate end to the day, care for body and senses, small rituals of gratitude or reflection, and the cultivation of a peaceful environment. These practices, repeated daily, create a rhythm that guides mind and body into rest, providing continuity, comfort, and subtle pleasure. Even in the smallest home, the act of preparing for sleep is an immersive sensory experience.
Finally, the city's hum fades into the background, leaving only the soft glow of your lamp, the faint fragrance of herbs and oil, and the tactile comfort of your bedding. Your body settles fully into rest, and the mind drifts gently toward dreams. The rituals of bathing, eating, and evening sociality have been completed. The day is concluded. Even as you close your eyes, you carry the memory of warmth, light, scent, sound, and the steady pulse of Roman life. A tapestry woven through hours, spaces, and routines, now folded neatly into sleep.
The night is deep now, and Rome has settled into a hushed, rhythmic quiet. The lamps glow softly in distant windows, their flickering light painting long, delicate shadows across walls and streets. From your resting place, the sounds of the city are gentle. A dog pads softly along a quiet alley. Water trickles from a distant fountain, and the occasional murmur of a late wanderer floats through the air. You feel the calm embrace of night folding around you, the city breathing in sync with your own slowing heartbeat. Your body sinks further into the bedding, cushions supporting your head just so, the linen soft against your skin. The day's labors, wandering through markets, tasting foods, observing streets, and indulging in bathing rituals, have faded into memory. Each sensory impression remains, softened by time and reflection. The warmth of the bathwater, the fragrance of herbs, the subtle sweetness of honeyed figs, the flickering lamplight in homes both grand and modest. These are the gentle threads that now weave themselves into your mind, preparing it for rest. Sleep in Rome, as in any age, is not merely a passive state. It is approached deliberately, almost ceremonially. You lie still, eyes closed, tracing the day's movements in reverse. The bustling streets of morning, the echo of your sandals on cobblestones, the murmur of conversation during midday meals, the warmth and ritual of the bath, the soft flicker of lamps during evening dining. Each memory blends into the next, creating a quiet montage of experience that soothes rather than excites. The scent of olive oil and herbs lingers faintly in your room, a gentle reminder of rituals completed. Even small details, like the angle of your pillow or the gentle hum of a lamp wick, contribute to the state of calm. Romans were attentive to these factors, understanding that environment, comfort, and routine are essential companions to the act of sleep. Historians still debate how much emphasis ordinary citizens placed on these rituals, but it is clear from both literary and archaeological evidence that sensory care was widespread. You feel the rise and fall of your chest slow.
each breath deeper and more deliberate than the last. The warmth of the room, the softness of the linens, and the faint background sounds of the city form a cocoon. You notice how every minor detail, lamp glow, the texture of bedding, the gentle scent of the air, reinforces a sense of safety and continuity. The rituals of the day, from bathing to evening meals to small acts of reflection, converge now in one simple, profound purpose: preparing mind and body for sleep. Your thoughts drift to small, comforting images. You recall children splashing in the bath, the sound of water gentle against marble, the golden glow of oil lamps across a dining table, the delicate aroma of figs and honey. These images, vivid yet calming, float in your mind like leaves on a slow river. There is no urgency, no expectation, only presence and memory, soft and sustaining. Evening leisure in the streets, the quiet conversations outside homes, and the hush of distant taverns all merge into a gentle soundscape. You imagine walking through these spaces again, feeling the gentle rhythm of the night, sensing the city's pulse in a way that mirrors your own. Each step, each breath, each remembered conversation is a part of the transition from wakefulness to rest. A sense of gratitude seeps into your awareness, subtle and unobtrusive. You acknowledge the warmth of the day, the nourishment of meals, the cleanliness of baths, and the comfort of shelter. Even small acts, a shared word, a smile, the placement of a lamp, gain significance in the quiet, creating a sense of order and care that the mind absorbs as reassurance. These acknowledgments are tiny, almost imperceptible, yet they create a soft foundation for the descent into sleep. Your muscles continue to relax, releasing the accumulated tension of the day. Shoulders loosen, jaw unclenches, and even the feet, often overlooked, find ease against the bedding. You remember the gentle massage of the bath, the stretch of muscles after a long walk, and the comforting weight of cushions and linens. The body, fully attended to, becomes a vessel for rest rather than tension. The mind, freed from the urgency of the day, wanders lightly over the sensory memories you've collected. The touch of cool water in the frigidarium, the warmth of the caldarium, the soft hum of conversation in both markets and dining rooms, the golden flicker of lamps across marble and plaster. These memories are now reframed as gentle, rhythmic companions, guiding thoughts away from stress or worry toward calm and tranquility. Sleep is not a sudden descent, but a slow, deliberate glide. You feel it in the subtle pull of eyelids, the deepening calm in your chest, and the gradual quieting of thought. Romans understood sleep as both necessity and ritual, a time to be approached with attention, comfort, and continuity. Even simple actions, repeated consistently, help the body recognize and surrender to rest. Outside, the city continues its nocturnal rhythm. Fountains trickle steadily, small animals stir softly, and occasional human movements occur at a measured, muted pace. The distance transforms these sounds into a gentle white noise, a backdrop for inner calm. You realize that the city itself participates in your transition to sleep, providing rhythm, consistency, and reassurance. You imagine the gentle flow of your own day, now fully remembered in fragments of sight, sound, and touch. The market smells, the warmth of sunlight, the feel of soft linens, the taste of honey and figs, the comfort of oil and water on skin. All these fragments, carefully stitched together by attention and memory, create a slow, hypnotic cadence that pulls you toward rest. Historians still debate how ordinary Romans structured these nocturnal experiences, but literary accounts suggest a consistent attention to the art of gentle closure. Your awareness softens, thoughts become sparse and fleeting. Breathing slows further, each exhale longer than the inhale, each pause between breaths more expansive. The body is entirely relaxed. The mind floats on the river of sensory memory, guided by rhythm rather than logic. The city, the home, and the rituals of the day all fade gently into a soft, enveloping darkness. Even as consciousness drifts, the small joys of the day linger like gentle echoes. The smell of herbs, the feel of warm water on skin, the flicker of lamps, the taste of figs and honey, the murmur of conversation, the soft rhythm of footsteps in the night. These are the subtle companions that accompany the mind into sleep, comforting, familiar, and unintrusive. As your eyelids finally close fully, the rituals of the day, bathing, eating, conversing, walking, reflecting, merge into one continuous sense of calm. The body is supported, the senses soothed, and the mind at ease. You feel the gentle pull into rest, the slow, natural surrender to the quiet, steady rhythm of sleep. Now the city hums faintly in the background. The lamps flicker their last, delicate dances, and the night deepens in its own unhurried, serene pace. You carry the memory of Roman daily life into dreams, warmth, scent, light, laughter, conversation, and care. Sleep arrives not as a sudden plunge, but as a gradual, comforting descent, a final ritual, subtle and profound, marking the closure of day and the gentle promise of tomorrow. The city softens further as night deepens. Your body rests fully against the bedding, each muscle slack, each joint released. The warmth of the day's sun, the gentle comfort of oil-scented linens, the soft caress of cool night air, all merge into a cocoon of calm. Thoughts drift slowly, unhurried, like leaves on a still pond. The streets of Rome, once busy and vibrant, are now quiet streams of light and shadow, their rhythm gentle and reassuring. You notice the lingering sensory memories, the feel of water in the bath, the scent of roasted bread, the soft flicker of lamps, and the quiet murmur of conversations that have long since ended. Each detail settles gently into your mind, forming a comforting mosaic that lulls awareness toward rest. Even the smallest gestures, a shared word at a table, the placement of a lamp, the brush of fabric across skin, become anchors of serenity. Breathing slows, deepens, and lengthens naturally. The mind releases the tension of observation and participation, allowing sensations and memory to carry it instead. You feel safe, attended to by both the rituals of the day and the gentle hum of the city. Sleep is a quiet, deliberate gift now, arriving with ease and inevitability. In this stillness, you surrender fully. The rhythm of the city, the warmth of the lamps, the softness of linens, and the continuity of Roman life guide your descent. Slowly, gently, the world of sight, sound, and touch blurs, leaving only calm. Each breath carries you farther from waking, deeper into rest, until consciousness softens completely and the gentle night embraces you fully. Sweet dreams.